I came fairly late as a member of my generation to join one or two of my cousins as a special event to be able to go to Massey Hall for a concert. They were at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The Toronto Symphony, very modest, very small at that time, had performances, very low price, 25 cents I think. Luigi von Kunitz, wonderful exotic name it seemed to me, was its conductor. We had the privilege, it was made very clear that it was a privilege, to sit in the box. All we had to do was to tell the doorman downstairs at the stage door, always a couple of my cousins, we'd like to go and hear them. Go ahead, enjoy yourselves. And nobody cared what we thought. We were not public about it, and nobody knew who we were at all. There are 2 levels of box, one above, one below. They were all covered over eventually, and the CBC ended up filling them with equipment, and people don't realize that they were actually independent boxes. And we could sit right at the front and peer down right into the kettle drums. I'm not quite sure whether I really was more interested in watching than I was in listening, but I loved it. Eventually, I did get to go to bigger things. By that I mean big choral pieces. The great oratorios, Messiah, were performed there. And that was a tremendous experience to go and see that great choir stacked up and the solos coming out. And this, well, Messiah is perhaps the great symbol of Toronto of that period. It was very exciting to be in that big hall. That was a big event by Toronto standards. Stravinsky had come to live in the United States. He didn't have many jobs. His fame as a composer was spread very widely, but it was a bit disturbing and shocking music for some people. But he was going to come to Toronto to conduct, which he did for money. He was really, he conducted a good deal in the last part of his life because he needed jobs. His music didn't make him large amounts of money at that stage, I don't think. But Stravinsky was the great contemporary composer celebrity. And so my cousins and I were very excited. We were going to go and sit in the box and watch Stravinsky conducting. He was like a little bird. And this little man, and he was, well, musicians told me much later, he wasn't a very good conductor. They never knew quite what he would do next. Oh, my Keynes did that, not Stravinsky. Okay. You didn't see him on the concert stage very much. But watching Stravinsky conduct was fascinating to me, this curious way of picking at the orchestra. And it wasn't easy to follow as a conductor because he would make up his mind with a great deal of personal commitment to what he was doing. Sometimes he'd surprise them with the tempi, he would change the tempi. That was a stunner for the audience, and many people in Toronto, still a fairly inexperienced musical city. A bit uncomfortable, let's say, with Stravinsky. Many people think it's the most dreadful piece of music. Some still do. Unbelievable. Though most people think it's one of the greatest musical achievements of the 20th century. And whatever you think, no question about it, Stravinsky is what he is, a giant figure, and has had an enormous effect. During the war, Massey Hall was used a great deal for war benefits. War bond drives. There'd be 2 or 3 big ones in the course of a year. And usually starring a great movie star dedicated to the cause of the war. Coming from Hollywood, coming from London, coming from wherever they were touring around. I remember we didn't pay to go in. We bought war bonds. The newest stars, some of them were very big. Ingrid Bergman was just becoming a big star at this point, and she came. That certainly packed the hall. Gracie Fields, very popular English music hall star. Everybody knew Gracie Fields' songs. Wall altar, Walter, lead me to the altar, you know, those songs.
Walter, Walter, lead me to the altar. I don't cost much to keep in food.
She worked very hard for war benefits. She was in Hollywood later in her life and did do films in her later life, but she was really a live audience performer.
Walter, Mother says you ought to take me while she's in the mood.
They were wonderful events at the hall. Great sense of participation. It's a wonderful hall for that, because it's warm. The sound is so warm in that place. And though it's a big hall, and it's high up when you go up to the top floor, nonetheless, the top floors are still close to you when you're performing, because acoustically it's so wonderful. All the great names, they loved Massey Hall. They loved its sound. It wasn't, in that way, the most luxurious hall, but it had this beautiful, warm sound. And audiences were very warm in the hall. They were warm physically, too, many a time, because there was no air conditioning for many years. It was never a snobby hall. It couldn't be. People paid what they could pay to come and enjoy the music. You didn't dress up very much. You didn't see many diamonds in Massey Hall. It was nothing like the Metropolitan Opera House in New York. It was a hall where everybody could go. And everybody did go. In some ways it represented everything that was best about provincial Toronto when it was conceived. And that is what Hart Massey would have wished it to be. Elmer Eisler did the Messiahs at Massey Hall. And I was very fond of Elmer personally, and I admired him enormously. And the moments were tremendously moving. I sat with Jesse one night, his wife, one of his later performances of Messiah. And it came one of the great moments of the Messiah. And I just turned to Jessie and just took her hand and I said, my God, we are so lucky. We've heard some of the greatest music ever written. And Elmer feels it with his heart, and it's unforgettable. I can still feel that moment. I could sit any evening by the fire and recall, I didn't even hear the sounds in my head, or I think I do. There's something about that building. Long may it live. It's great to have a place to go where you can shout bravo at the top of your lungs.